Yes, yes,
people.
yes.
Sure.
So I'll press go live on that, or you will do. Hello. Yeah. So also start it. Okay.
Shall we start, sir? Are we live?
Yeah, we are live. Okay.
Okay, okay. Well, hello and welcome everyone to another session of I Technical Lecture Series. Today we have a very exciting session on demystifying large language models, and we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Chiranjib Sur, sir. So, a little background about sir. He is an active researcher in deep learning, computer vision, NLP, audio analysis, data mining, network science, artificial intelligence, and its allied branches in various kinds of applications in engineering and social science problems related to intelligent data processing and optimization. Sir graduated with a bachelor's in EC from NIT Durgapur and thereafter an MTech from IIIT Gwalior and an MS and PhD in computer science from University of Florida, where he was affiliated with both the ECE and CISE departments. After a brief stay at GE Healthcare, California, and Bing Multimedia Research, Microsoft, he is now working as an assistant professor at Mehta Family School of Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. So, without any further ado, we'd like to hand over the session to Sir for this exciting talk.
Thank you. Before I start, am I audible, and is my screen properly visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, the screen is
Okay.
visible and your audio is also fine.
Okay. So let's get started. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate this initiative, which can connect a lot of people who are actually looking for opportunities and connect with each other. And at the same time, always try to present harder topics in a smoother way, which can encourage them and also get them started with what area they should focus on, what is the next big thing that is going to affect the world and create opportunity. So in this talk, when Shishir invited me, he invited me to talk about demystifying large language models. I will always do that, but before that, I want to connect how our Indian roots were actually involved in similar kind of data science or data analysis framework, which is still there, and I want to connect each and everyone with this kind of thing. Since we are from I am from West Bengal and Assam, they have a very common culture, and we all talk in Bengali, which is, I think, the fifth largest like in terms of number of speakers. Bengali is the fifth largest in the world, so we are not that much behind. We are a big population, and we want to connect our people to some of these things which they may not know, or they may know but they cannot connect. So let's get started. Okay. So uh, like Western countries always brand their own things in such a way that they make the others feel that they are the only greatest human beings on earth, the superior kind and all these things. So you will all find lot of these presentations. They try to show that the first data scientist was actually Florence Nightingale. She was actually a nurse who was treating different people during the trying times of war and all those things. I think she was helping some. Just a minute. Uh, Okay, so she was actually a nurse, and what she used to do is she used to count how many people came inside the hospital and how many people got recovered, how many people died. All these statistics she used to collect, and based on how the things are going, she can actually estimate how far the war will continue. Because as in the initial stages, the number of people who dies more because there are so many people around, and gradually when the number of soldiers decreases, that is the time when each of the teams who are involved in the fighting, they lose their manpower, their resources, their food, and all those things, and that's where she can predict how far the world will stretch and all those things. So this is, of course, this is a great data science topic, but you have to understand that these are very simple models, right? You just need to plot the thing, do a little bit of summation and calculation and all these things, and predict how far it will go, right? But I think that in India, but let's talk about another thing before I go into this situation. So Western countries always, pick up their hero or shiro, what they call it. Shiro is the she hero kind of a thing. So they want to focus that we had some great, women who are actually great scientists and great people, and other parts of the world do not have that. But if you see the history, you will find that at one point of time, the US universities and the European universities didn't allow women candidates to take part in their education system. Okay, if you see Harvard, you can see that it is only in 1946, after which it became co-ed. Before that, there were no female candidates. Yale had the first female candidate, I think, in 1960, and all these things are in public domain. It is in 1968. Before that, it was all male.
Hello, sir. Sorry for the interruption.
Yes,
Sir, are you sharing? Are you like moving the slides?
yes, I
Not
I just
finished.
moved. So is it working?
No, sir. It's the is in the same first slide.
No, I just moved myself to the next slide. So
Now it
um,
is fine.
Now it's
now is it
reflecting.
Now
working?
it's reflecting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, so I was talking about how the Western, universities were not even co-ed at one point of time. Yale was a co-ed at 1968. Even my alma mater, University of Florida, was the first woman was admitted in 1947. If you see the history, this was the 1946, 1947, this was the time when the Second World War was actually ended, and a lot of these nurses and health workers who, and some people who are working for the United States and other, the allied powers, to help them uh, to get through this. They need helpers, right? In war, there are so many people who need to help, and these were the people who came back from war. These people were already in a trauma, understand war trauma. So they were actually came back, and they don't have anything to do, because they may have spent a lot of time in the war zone, and they may lose some of their boyfriend, some husband. People move on once they lose their partners, and all these things happen. And that is when the US government thought that, why don't we educate these people and take them in other kinds of workforce. Maybe it is other workforce, means in offices and other industry or manufacturing, in which US was concentrating. So they tried to like incubate all these women candidates through this education system. So it was not by choice, it was by there was no other option than to do this. Okay, so why I am trying to point out this thing is because if you say Florence Nightingale was the first data scientist. She never visited university. She was not properly trained up, right? She was just a nurse helping the soldiers and all those things. She was mostly the like previously hospitals were mostly army hospitals. Later on, civilian hospitals came up, right? So I just want to point out that it was not a like a best way to to characterize their what they have done best for the world. It was only just by choice, or there was no other thing they could have done for them. But if we connect our ancient India, okay, the best data science work is a Panjika, right? If you can read the Panjika, you will get each and every, like what we do in our clustering and data sciences, right? These things already was there long time in ancient India, and now even nowadays it remains as a Panjika. You will find different kind of characteristics. If you find the birth time of a person, you can actually understand what kind of characteristics that person will be, and all these things are documented, so you understand how much tremendous work was being done by different people studying different characteristics based on their birth time, and how they are behaving, how they are treating their partners, and if they two people get married, how will be the what will be the compatibility, right? These things were not which they predicted. They actually studied the whole system, whole Indian society. uh, uh, Maybe you can understand, nowadays lot of surveys happens, right? The management people try to understand their customers and all those things to try to predict or bring the product, or mold their product in to solve their problem. All these things were already done in our ancient India, and now you can see, based on the time and effects and all those, even birth time and other nakshatra, even the positioning of different nakshatras. If you just forget about the nakshatra concept, it is just like different situations will have different effects on different people, right? And that is being formulated. Okay, so this is a tremendous work, but we never feel that that was glorified in ancient India. We never understand. We never try to. We thought that all these things are junk, right? So this is like we never think, or we fail to brand our own works, right? And very strangely, if you see, I give you a simple example. Like Kepler did a lot of these astronomical calculations, right? And all these calculations were done by students and fellow or people who are working under him. Okay, they did all the like studying the different position of the stars and all those things, and gradually they came up with this formula, and all the uh, credit goes to Kepler. I feel that Kepler may have done a very smart out assembling the different observations, but a lot of these works were done by other scholars whose name we never know. But Panjika, or the Indian texts, the sculpture, the scriptures like the Upanishads and all those things, we don't know who has written these things, right? Because it may happen that lot of people's work were actually assembled into a form of a text, and it is like a long period of time and effort of huge number of people, right? Which is being accumulated, so it should never go to a one person. It can never happen that one person and does all the thing. Just imagine if we have to cook our own food and do our house course and then do the research. We won't be able to do that, right? Everyone has their role, and we sometimes outsource these works to other people like to other people, like we buy food from outside and all those things. So it can never happen. So what I'm trying to point out is that there are a lot of things which actually part of us. We never glorify them, we never feel proud of them, right? Even like different parts of India, they have their own kind of version of how the astrological things. What is astrology, right? It is a best clustering thing human have ever created, right, in human history. So sometimes even you're working in some of you are working in corporate, right? They always do these corporate trainings and activities, right? And they give you a couple of questions, and you answer them, and they will ask you to accumulate the totals, and then then they will try to cluster that, okay, based on these answers, these are your characteristics. And and sometimes you will find that the managers are actually trying to understand whose property is what, and then they will accordingly manipulate them, or may not manipulate them, extract their best potential. So that is how I put it, in that way. So corporates are doing that, right? What our Panjika system and all those things. So human nature, human drawbacks, human compatibility, all these things are previously studied, and corporates always also exploit, but they do not give it the name of Panjika or ancient and ancient Indian system, because if they do that, they will lose out their brand or something, because at some point of time we Indian don't feel proud of that, and the Western countries never allowed us to do that. Okay, so the present government is little bit favorable in terms of branding our best things, putting them in forward to the world. It's a good thing, but unless we individually acknowledge what our ancient people have done, it will never be a successful. Let's so the Chinese system also, the Chinese zodiac system also have similar kind of clustering of different. So what they did is they actually clustered their uh, like uh, like different years into different kind of characteristics. So like if someone is born in 1924.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, yeah. So still, like it is stuck in that reality slide.
Okay, this one is struck here.
Yes.
Very strange. So can I reshare it? So can you see the new slide?
Yes, yes. Data science in ancient India.
So maybe if I keep it here, can you see the changes?
Yes, yes, yes. Now data science in ancient India.
Okay. So I think
Then,
I should keep it, instead of sharing it as a presentation, and keeping it this way, so that
yeah,
everyone.
maybe, sir, you can share yours. You can do the slideshow, because I think
Oh, okay,
slideshow you are not doing. That's right.
okay, okay. Just let me. Uh, Let me reshare this again. Okay. Uh, so should I go for the entire screen or Windows? Okay. Uh, should I share it from
Yeah,
the?
entire window you can do.
Okay, okay. Let me do that. Entire screen. Yeah, hopefully this will be better. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now tell me.
Uh,
So is this
it's fine. Yeah,
visible? Okay.
it's fine.
Okay. Sorry for this. I don't. Since I am only seeing my screen, I don't even know what is actually happening. So what I was talking about this Panjika system and all this great work of nakshatra, and based on the timing of the birth of different people can actually be classified into, or clustered into similar kind of approach. Like if two people are birth or taking birth at the same time, or at the same span of time, if I can be more precise, then they are very high likely to be having the same kind of characteristics. But there is a I also talked about this corporate system, who actually they will in disguise, they will try to give you some activities and try to understand, activities, I mean couple of questions, and based on the answers you give, they will try to understand. And these are leadership characteristics, which the big B schools, business schools, actually teach you to understand your strength and your weakness. And the most important thing is that sometimes through training, these characteristics can be improved, or or better skills can be acquired. But if you go, like if you see a person as it is, like if that person is natural, then these characteristics which are present in the Panjika, these things will gradually come out. Whereas when they are in corporate life, they pretend to be someone who that person is actually not. So so what I am another example is the Chinese zodiac system. They actually gave, clustered it in this way that if someone has a characteristics like if a person is like born in 1924 or 1936, these two year, all the people will have the characteristics of rat. I'm not sure what exactly that means. Like even like all these animals which are present, these animals have some characteristics, not by through their food habit or where it is living. uh, like like tiger is a bold, so it will always try to take decisions which are very risky, whereas rabbit will be very timid and will always be conservative kind of a thing. So it is not who eats what, but it is based on the characteristics, the approach they have. Like if there are like 100 ox and one tiger comes, all the ox will run away. So that is the like their characteristics, that they will not, if 10 ox confronts the tiger, that tiger may run away, but that never happens. The oxes will run away. So that's what I'm trying to point out. But here there's a big drawback, that the Chinese clustered the whole year as it is, whereas if you see the Indian Panjika system or ancient India data science, they actually created this span of years, day and night, even small changes, they can actually understand what will be the change in their behavior. So you understand there's so much tremendous amount of crowdsourcing work that has been done, and still now we use this thing. It was so robust and so, like if you see the other big civilization like the Roman civilization and Greek civilization, they hardly have anything left for us. But Indian is the only civilization whose text, or who, even you see Gita, it is, I think some people thinks Gita is the best management book ever in the world. It has nothing to do with any dharma. It is all about making yourself better and doing what you are supposed to do. So these, I'm just pointing out that we have done tremendous thing in our ancient times. We can always do that. So we have the potential. We only need to get connected with the right people. So so also, why, before I jump into LLMs, let's talk about what are the data science things which actually happened in ancient India. So lot of these observations and groups of people were there in Nalanda and Vikramashila, right? And all these people were mostly working with teachers. They were not like student or teachers. They had some this Gurukul system or tolls or something, where they mostly worked as nowadays PhD student work very closely with one instructor, and gradually there is a tech transfer of the guides to the students, right? So guides means the advisor or the teacher, from the teacher to the students. There's a whole tech transfer of all the knowledge, and the student also contribute to the knowledge of the teachers to by doing all the task what was given to him or her. Okay. And all this information, the teachers actually or the gurus, we should not call teachers is very different for gurus, because teachers only teaches you. Guru actually makes you a better person, guides you through life, through knowledge, and also by building relationship means there is always, like, even after, if you have very good relationship with your PhD advisor, that will remain throughout your life. And but if there is a relationship of teacher and a student, it will stop the moment the grades are out. So there is a like different approach of dealing with like how the people or the students were dealt with. And that's why so many people from outside India, that they came here, right? Because there is so many things they can relate. Okay, they feel at home. They feel that, okay, I'm not talking to a person who is selling some knowledge. I'm talking to a real person who is guiding you. That's how the guru thing actually comes up. Okay. And there was tremendous documentation, like, right? But unfortunately some invaders actually destroyed them, and we are left with nothing. And you heard that Nalanda had a big library, and it was burnt in. It was put into I think 45 days or 50 days of burning. It went through, before all the textbooks turned into ashes. Okay, so another thing I want to point out is that even after burning so many books, torturing so many people, the knowledge is still there, and that is how strong and concrete it was among the people, and it was transferred through, speaking. Like it was like even after destroying all the books, people were so strongly rooted with their knowledge system that they have the knowledge inside them, and they could have transferred that information into the next generation was just by imparting them through their speaking, through conversation. So that was the most important thing I want to point out. Okay, so even some of you people may not know, vaccination first started in ancient India. Okay, so we had this maybe some of you may correlate. We have Shetala Mandir, right? So Shetala, so if you see people who get affected by chicken pox or some other kind of pox, the mother of those children or these people go to Shetala Mandir and offer prayers and all those things. So prayers is totally a different thing. The Shetala Mandirs were actually the vaccination center where, Mayed Daya, that was the coin, that was the term coined at that time, and where vaccination was done by the scholars who came from Nalanda and Vikramashila. They came walking, settle in those, not settle, they used to, stay for some days in the Shetala Mandir, and all the children were brought there, and they get all this vaccination, and so for some days they will get affected, and later on, once they get cured, like they get vaccinated, they generate their antibody, and at one point of they get cures, and chicken pox can never affect them. So that was the thing, and at one point of time, Chinese also say that, hey, vaccination also, but some of the Chinese scholars actually came to India, and not the other way. Indian scholars never went to China to learn all those things. Anyway, I just don't want to go into this controversy, but Indian system had this vaccination much before the Western countries were actually realized, unless they came here and invaded us. So what? So before I uh, go into LLMs, I just want to point out that whatever we are doing in data science, we are actually trying to approximate lot of concept into some kind of a mathematical form. Okay, or in terms of like, if you consider Panjika, what they have did is that they have clustered different time zones into some kind of like, they have mapped some zones into characteristics, right? The same thing which we can do in mathematics, right? We can create a function which we are given a set of parameters, right? We can get some evaluation or estimation, and that estimation will denote something. So this was the main concept, and we also like in ancient India we had a lot of this mathematics, but due to this invasion of different people, our knowledge system is broken, because there were so many of these things, and those things need training and guidance, and unless you do that, you won't be able to understand the scriptures and the mathematics which was there. And that's why this gap in understanding remain. And sometimes when engineers do all this data science and all those things, the general mathematicians or the physicists, they felt left behind, because the mathematical concept they are getting, they are unable to use that for the system. But I am very I can guarantee you that in ancient India, when these mathematical concepts was being taught, they were actually related to this kind of societal things, where people who got trained into this kind of mathematics, they use those mathematics to study the system or study the society, and then come up with this kind of theories which actually got transformed into Panjika and all those things. It is not a one day of work. It is a work of maybe couple of centuries or or more. You never know how much time it was spent by different various number of scholars to develop that thing. Okay, so now the thing is that once nowadays what happens is that uh, we also always have this good mathematical proofs, right? But unless we have a problem to solve or we have a problem to apply it, we that mathematics is not that much useful, right? So why I am saying this is that we, as ancient, we had this root from ancient India, right? We have so many things in our past, and we had so many scriptures, right? But at some point of time, we are unable to relate, or how we don't know how to use that information to improve our society, right? So Panjika system was not to create to like, what can I say? So it was created to make people aware of what are the properties of other people's are, right? So if I have some good properties, my parents or my spouse or my friend should know that, right? And that is how they will actually transform, or they will behave in that kind. And if I have some bad habits or bad characteristics, some people will actually point me out, either by studying me or by studying the Panjika, which will give them the idea that, okay, I have these bad qualities, I need to change them. So that's why it was made, right? It was not to horrify or use it during the marriages. So in marriages, these things were used to make the marriage stable, right? The societal thing will become stable when husband and wife have the maximum compatibility, right? That is good for the society. But at some point of time, we forgot of all those things, right? So similarly, in mathematics, if you consider, we know lot of this information. Unless you can use it for the better of the society, that will never be helpful. I'll give you very small examples. Okay, so I have shown you in this slide. It is not to fear, like create fear among the students that whatever written. It is just to mention that the role of mathematics is very limited. Like if we consider this problem, okay, so this is a very simple problem where you have x and y, which are assumption, data assumptions. So if you are in machine learning, you will understand that y is the classes and x is the data, right? And you are trying to learn something called a w, which are the weights, right? Now if we can find out this closed form solution, okay, if you go into statistics and mathematics, if you only can solve this closed form solution, you will be able to estimate w, right? But if you can't estimate w, then what will happen? You will not be able to solve this problem. Now this problem is very simple. We can find out a closed form solution. Our, as a mathematician or statisticians, this problem is now solvable. But the moment it becomes very complex, or even if you have some regularization, if this becomes the w, we can still solve the problem. But there can be situations where you can never solve this problem, right? In those kind of scenario, statistics and mathematics has limitations. Okay, the moment that happens, we cannot solve a problem in a feasible way. We use gradient descent methods to learn the parameters, right? That is known as parametric estimation. We presently, in large language models and deep learning models, we do it extensively, right? Because there is no way we can solve this problem in a way which previously statisticians used to do, or sometimes mathematicians also do, through solving this problem through equations, right? Presently, that amount of data and the characteristics of data is so large, just like Panjika, the amount of society, like the amount of data they have collected from the society, there is no way they can formulate into a mathematical problem. So they put it into a form of a book, where given a certain amount of training, they can use that book to understand the characteristics of a person. As simple as that. Now presently, with more number of computing resources, we don't need the Panjika manual to do that. We can have some databases and some models which can give you the same amount of results, right? So similarly, expectation maximization, we use this thing when you do not have a closed form solution. So if you see the parameters which are present here, okay, these are all interlinked. Like when you are solving for z, we have x and all those things, and similarly some of these parameters are also there. So you cannot, like, you have to keep something in constant, solve the for expectation, and then keep the thing constant, and then solve it for the maximization. So we cannot we can never solve it in on the same time. Whereas in, if you find the closed form solution, you can solve it in one go. Whereas in expectation maximization, we have to iterate the whole thing to come to a conclusion. So what I'm pointing out, as the things become larger and more complex, right, it is very difficult to put into a mathematical form, right? We have to have some more skill. Like if you really go into astrology or have the skill to read Panjika, then you will need some extra training, right? What our data scientists, they are traditional mathematician or engineers who are given some extra skills to deal with this complex problem which cannot be solved in simpler way. Okay, so I'm not going into okay, so let's go into this details. Is that expectation maximization, if you see this big mathematics, what they are trying to do, they have some data and they are trying to put some blob around that data. So if you have that data, and if you study the Gaussian mixture models, these are actually like elliptical shape, elliptical shape like models which you can put over the data. And if you see this fitting, they have created 3 elliptical shape blobs over the data, right? And if you have a elliptical shape which have similar x-axis and y-axis, it becomes round, right? And the moment it becomes round, it is known as k-mean clustering. So in k-means clustering, what we are trying to do, we approximate these equations in such a way that instead of these blobs, we will have only circles. And the moment you make it circle, the number of parameters to be estimated decreases and the problem becomes much more solvable. And that's why people start with k-means, that because that is the the simplest way of defining a problem. Okay, so I am trailing this thing that behind maths there is some intuition, right? And that intuition, if you know, you will become a great data scientist. Okay, so with the like most of you will be we already know that the era of computation and data, it came with volume, variety, velocity, value, and veracity, right? So the mathematician, the more number of data came, the mathematician become overwhelmed. The statisticians also got overwhelmed. Previously, you will be surprised to know that the statisticians used to get jobs in this like research centers. Their work was to find out, like the work of the mathematicians was to solve the problem into a form of equation, and those equation, when they have parameters, all those parameters were estimated by the statisticians. They used to they were very good in maths and handling with numbers, and they used to do all these calculations, big matrices. But the moment the amount of data became very large, these statisticians literally got overwhelmed, and later on computer science people were took over their jobs, and gradually a lot of this statistician like parametric estimation was done in computers nowadays. Supercomputers and all those things are there, right? So So the why computer scientists made an entry, right? So the big advantage was that they not only about computation, it is about distributed computation which can actually solve this problem. Okay, also the reliability and the storage of the of data came in, and people were can actually save some of their work and then try to continue. So for a statistician, when they try to solve a problem, they have to do it in one go. Otherwise, if they take a 2 hours of lunch break, come back, they may have to revise all the things they have done before and then start from new. That is very hectic kind of a hectic kind of way of solving problems. So reliability and storage was very important. With databases, that problem got solved. Computational efficiency already there. Gradually, with years, there were dedicated hardware companies who actually created this opportunity that we have better and better and cheaper computational power. Gradually, we had more number of tools and user interfaces where people instead of writing codes, they can interact with the back end and solve a lot of problems, and cheaper circuits, of course. Okay, all these things gradually, so one thing is for sure, that Western countries had contributed in this field much more, and they were able to visualize the future much better than what we were able to do. So in ancient India, the amount of knowledge that was not propagated well into the whole of the society, and that's why a lot of people remain detached from the main knowledge stream. Whereas if you see countries like United States, what they do, they try to engage all their people into this kind of, like, the moment they bring some new technology or some new innovation, they try to engage people, and that's how this knowledge get transferred. And sometimes when people start knowing about this newer technology, they come up with some different approach. Like I give a simple example, like microwave was actually a military product which was developed by US Army to do some of the solve some of their problems. Gradually, one person actually understood that that can be used to heat up their food, right? And that does not need any some burner or other thing. You can just put your food and bring it and take it back. That's the only that's it, right? So that information of transferring a military technology into a civilian technology that can help so many people, that can only happen when you engage your civilians or your larger people into that mainstream, and one or two people will find the opportunity to solve any other problem by seeing that opportunity, right? So that thing was very nice from the Western countries, and I really appreciate that. And but one thing I really feel sad about our people, or Indian people, is that they don't feel proud of what their ancestors has done for them or for the whole world. Okay, so before I get into other kind of thing, I want to point out is that uh, like when a person invents something, or there is some mathematical invention, like there is some mathematical things are developed, or some kind of a new product is developed, unless we understand the impact of that product or that mathematics into the society, we won't be able to understand its gravity. Okay, I give you a simple example, right? Many of you guys have already know this optimization of this trajectory of this flight. Okay, so at one point of time, mostly in World War II and World War III, okay, initially these fighter jets used to take a very long runway to take a flight. Okay, so that was a great challenge, because if the enemy country bombs some part of your runway, okay, these fighter jets will never be able to take off, because the amount of running they need to take take off to make a good takeoff is gone. So the only thing the enemy country has to do is not to destroy your planes, but just to destroy some part of your runway, right? So that becomes very easy. So what the big countries like United States and France, these are the mostly the two countries who is to develop these things. So they gave this problem to big universities, right, and to big researchers who can solve this problem of make how to make a fighter jet which can run in a very short runway. And that is a very great capability, because if you can make a run on a very short runway, then lot of problems are getting solved. So you understand, to won a war, you have to develop a maths which can solve not only the problem for your fighter jets, but also to make your enemy country feel in that way that it is not only you have to bomb every part of that runway, but also destroy their fighter jets as well. So their cost of engagement in the war increases, if you understand it that way. So you don't have to destroy only the runway, you have to destroy the whole system around the army base to have that advantage. So that is you know that property that actually came from these big universities. And once they develop this capability, it becomes it is a great data science problem, because what can I say, the amount of capability it can generate for one country, it is tremendous. I am not sure whether you are able to understand. Let's go into another simpler problems. Okay, so the same thing can be done in you. If you go to United States, you will find lot of this gear shifting happens in the cars, that happens automatically. In India, most of this gear shifting are being done manually. So when a person is trained up to drive a car in India, that person has to keep track of all the information, what gear it is in, what gear it should be, all these things. But in America, since all these things are happening at the automatically, they only have to focus on getting the speed, right? So you understand, in India, one person has to keep their mind in too many of these things to run a car, whereas in America they can just focus on running the car fast to save oil, save time, and save energy. So if a person drives car in India for 100 kilometers, they have to spend much more. They're involved, their cognitive power, their lot of you know uh, oil is being used. But in United States, so what I'm trying to point out is that the technological advancement they are making, that is impacting the people, right? Whereas in India, we are still in that like we are still using manual gear, that is actually taking away some of our capability. Like if I drive for 100 kilometers and I have to think too many of these things, by the time I have driven 100 kilometers, I will be exhausted. So this is the tremendous impact on the society. Let's go into another problem. So in terms of logistics, right? So we are using lot of this information to like when the government is actually distributing electricity, right? They should do in such a way that they can predict what kind of like if there is a industry here, this is the part where more number of info, like more number of wattage of electricity that should reach this part instead. Whereas this part which has only houses and offices, they can still do with little bit. So this kind of planning, if the government can make, the amount of electricity outage, or what we call that load shedding, that will decrease gradually. Means that will almost be negligible, right? So previously the United States actually developed this grid system where all these things, they were actually mostly engaged in, calculating the future prediction, some kind of a regression problem, and that actually created so much impact on the society, and that actually empowered the society, right? So there were people who can spend in their home and still have electricity, whereas the industry can have a unlimited or uninterrupted power supply. So that actually impacted the society, because if the industry runs well, that is where people will get cheaper goods, right? But if the industry gets impacted, then the cost of goods will also increase. So all these things are part of, some data science problem which actually impacts the society. Some network science is also there. So consider the internet network, right? So we are all connected with one another, but if someone destroys the backbone internet, say like here BSNL or Reliance manages this backbone, right? If someone destroys this, even we are sitting beside one another, we will never remain connected. So this is another, understanding which are the, backbone are more important to one country. That is very important to, safeguard the connectivity of people, because enemy country can, log in into your system and just stop this whole thing. Because there are so many e-commerce activities going on, right? Each day the 13 lakhs what is that called, IRCTC, Indian Railways bookings are being done. There are so many online shopping is being done. So one click, if they stop it for 5 hours, then there is so much of revenue loss for different people. So these are the some of the few data science problem which make huge impact in the societal life. Okay, so that's why I'm giving you these examples. Okay, game theory is another way, to maximize the profit of different people. So here, if you understand, only if they can, like in management, it is says that if two companies, compete with one another, and if one company gets the maximum, gets the monopoly, and the others dies, like here in this situation, if both of them, like what can I say, if both of them confess, right, both of them has 5 years of jail. If one of them confess, then overall they have 20 years of jail. Similarly in this way, but if both of them remain shut, then they will have 1 year, so 2 years of jail time they will suffer. Okay, so it is better to remain silent for both of them. Similarly, if there is a big company in any country, and that they control all the resources, just like I give you a very simple example, like USSR broke because in USSR all the industries were controlled by the government. But even after United States having so much of debt, right, the government debt in United States is very large, 32 billion, their economy is 20 billion dollar, 20 trillion dollar economy, but their debt is 32 trillion dollar, whereas it is like 8 times more than the, not 8 times, 10 times more than the economy of India. So they have so much of debt. Just because the debt, uh, government is in debt, doesn't mean anything, because the industry is controlled by private entities. Okay, so that means what, the government can keep on borrowing from a private person. But in USSR, what happened is that the public, since the government is controlling the industry, now when the moment the government goes out of, money, they cannot borrow their own money from themselves, right? So that's the strategy of, like, bad strategy they used. So this game theory, the understanding of this game theory has a huge impact, and that's why you will always see in United States all the industries are actually investing in other person's industry, just to create a synergy that if everyone remains, like if all there are 10 big companies are there, they will buy Microsoft products. Even if 8 of them buys Microsoft product, Microsoft will always remain in business. But say Microsoft tries to shut down couple of other companies who build some of their competitive product like the cloud or something, it may happen that some of the companies dies and their revenue gets decreased just because of that situation, right? So so you also have to understand that if I am the only person who is here, I cannot make a society. For society to be there, you have to create that manpower where you will buy some product from me and I will also buy the product from you. That is how society is being engineered in United States. We had that thing in from ancient India. We are a society based civilization where we like, if I develop some info, like product, I can sell it to another person and the same. And that's why even after so many invention, we are still there because we were self sufficient. We can develop things on our own and create this local markets where we can exchange our products. But other countries like even if you see European countries, they only invade one another. Like the Spanish used to invade the Portuguese and the French used to, and these things happened all the time, right? So compared to that, and that's why they were so interested in India, right? There should be some why Vasco da Gama wants to reach India, because they know that we are so much organized, we develop so many things that they want all the resources, right? And even Christopher Columbus, why that the Christopher Columbus, for people who don't know, he wants to reach India, but unfortunately he reached the America, right? And it is said that he discovered America. He didn't discover. He want the reaches of India, and that's why he went out on his ship to reach India, because that's where the all the things are, right? Even you will be amazed to hear, for people who don't know, the Native Americans, the tribal people of America, were known as Red Indians, because somehow when Christopher Columbus reached there, they thought that these are the Indian people, and that's why they have Indiana state in United States. So you have to understand that the things what we call it as some advancement Western countries have done, okay, these things were already there as part of our society. All these theories which were impacted the society, some of these things were already part of our system. Another very interesting problem is the Kalman filter. So people who don't understand this, so this is one radar, okay, and a couple of ships are coming. So the radar is actually trying to detect this ship. Now if this one country wants to shoot down this plane, so this radar will send the information of this thing, right? But the thing is that the at after 1 second, the the like it will move, right? So what can I say? So there will be some displacement just because this fighter jet is moving. When like a missile is being thrown, it is very high chance that it will miss the target, because you cannot estimate that after 2 seconds where should this fighter jet should be. So the Kalman filter actually solved this problem. So at one point of time, when United States have to or shoot down a German plane, if they have to shoot it for like 30 missiles, now with Kalman filter, they can do the same thing with 10 missiles. So that is the great impact. So because missiles are so costly, right? So this Kalman filter can estimate the position of a moving target. Okay, there are so many other control system products which are using Kalman filter. Those are like the things which later on people actually improvise to use Kalman filter. But Kalman filter was actually a military product which was targeted for solving a particular type of problem. So these problems are actually, very very important products which create very important societal, influence. And it not only helped a country to make better defense product, but also take the confidence of the people that these are impacting their societal life, right? So at one point, if why everyone wants to go to United States, it's not about the money, power, but it is all because of the, social security and the military security they provide. Okay. uh, so so why I am talking about all these inventions, it is because the impact it can produce in the society. And at the same time, you have to understand that all these big innovations were actually branded, right? Because unless you brand your own thing, unless you feel great about your own thing, you will always have this inferiority complex, and you will feel that the next person who is standing beside you is better than you, right? And this is one kind of a, psychological influence which the Western countries always put on Eastern countries, like, or the developing countries, so called, or re-emerging countries like uh, India and China. Okay, so I will not go into details of machine learning. What I will go is that uh, like where actually the things goes wrong. So let's talk about the one problem which happened in this World War II. So researchers at the Center for Naval Analysis faced this critical problem that when one of the, fighter jets comes back, it only repairs those part of the fighter jets where they got a hit from the opponents or from the enemy country. So if you see, these are the portions which got hit, so they only fix this part or make it harder, so that even if they get a bit like another hit, it can sustain. But later on it was found that the these were the parts of the fighter jet which never, affected the flight of this fighter jet. So even if this fighter jet had got hit on this portion, it never went down, it actually came back to the base. Whereas it the fighter jets which never came back, their hit points were never being, discovered. So what happened is that they actually missed out the point that if, say, this is the turbine blades or the engines are, if this is the part where it gets hit, then it is more likely to go down, right? But since the fighter jets which came back has never got a hit in this part, the engineers at that time never thought of, repairing this part. So this is one classical problem where we actually turn our blind eye to those kind of scenarios where we are not able to justify. Pretty like our ancient Indian contributions were overlooked just because we don't understand what they have contributed. The moment we will able to, link what they have contributed, we feel proud about that, right? So this is where, researchers, or as data scientists, we should always try to, ask questions, why this thing actually remained there, or why is this book so it is like, it is still considered as a best book in the world. Like Gita, I think it is the best management book. It tells you how to, remove your fear and, discard all the things, and then, focus on the things which you have to do, right? If you have to make justice for your own or and for your family, you have to forget what is, naitic things and unethic things. So that's why this visualization is very important. Okay, so I will start with, now my, discussion on ancient India is almost over. Now I'll gradually go into LLMs. So So why LLMs became very popular is because the branding and the social impact it has provided. So let's talk about deep learning. Just want to give you a very brief about what were the contributions. So from a statistical point of view, if you see, deep learning are couple of linear and non-linear transformations which are put together, and the moment you bring some non-linear transformations, right? So here if you see this u and w, when you multiply these two things, these are linear transformation. The moment you bring a sigmoid or other tan h function, it becomes a non-linear one, right? So in a deep learning like a LSTM cell or any multi-layer perceptron, we have multiple layers of linear and non-linear transfer. The moment we have some data, what we try to do, we try to approximate a huge volume of data into some kind of a mathematical form. That is the crux of deep learning. Okay, like if you have 10 Chiranjib Sur, and each of those 10 Chiranjib Sur you want to approximate, you will create a clone where you put 10 Chiranjib Surs, the best properties of all of 10 Chiranjib Surs, and then you make another Chiranjib Sur and discard the 10 of them and keep one. That is good enough to handle the problem. Similar thing happens here. Okay, now the problem with deep learning is that the moment you try to approximate, like if you are trying to create a new professor out of say all the faculties in a department, you only can accommodate 10 properties. Okay, and if you have five faculties, then what will happen, you can take at most two from each of them, right? And maybe these faculties have four qualities. The next two properties which you can take but you cannot is gone. Similar things happens here. The moment you try to learn this w and u, it is the onus of these weights or the parameters to learn everything from the data. And at some point of time, when you have a huge volume of data, the variety changes. You have distribute like a data coming from multiple Gaussian distribution. Then what will happen, these parameters will not be able to learn any of them. So what happens now, the moment you find that some of the data are not being represented well, you increase the number of parameters. Okay, the moment you increase your parameters and you do it in a proper way, you get a large language models, which we will be discussing today. Okay, so what actually happens is that the moment you have, so if you see all these parameters you have in LSTM, these are called gates. Okay, so what happens is that all these gates, so when you throw a image or some text, each of these gates will actually learn a part of the it. I will always consider image as a proper as a example, because people can correlate. So if you throw in an image of a person who is eating with some of his friends, some one of the gate will capture one person, one gate will capture the food, one gate will capture the table, and all those things happens. The moment you get the final distribution, this thing will be the combination of all the things this model was able to see. Pretty like this is the traditional problem where if you there are a couple of blind men, and if you tell them to describe the elephant and they can only touch a part of the elephant, right? They will only describe the part, like if this person will say that it is a spear, this person will say that it is like a fan, this one will say it is a fan, and similar way. Okay, so same thing happens in deep learning. Each of the gates or each of the parameters actually captures only one of them, one part which it can focus on. Okay, and when you have multiple of these things, I do not I never use a, multi-layer perceptor, because sometimes they misses out a lot of things. They only approximate too much of these things. LSTM was the first model which can capture different important information and still combine it. So the amount of approximation LSTM does is very less compared to the others. Okay, so let's talk about transformers. So now we want to learn more and more parameters. We need bigger models. We are not satisfied with 4 gates what LSTM was offering. So what we did, we created this function. Okay, so in this function, so what happened is that LSTM has lot of these variations. I also for my PhD introduced some variation of this LSTM, and I was worked on the TensorFlow representation. So at that time, my focus was to create an LSTM part which can retain some more information which is coming from the data, and that can actually help in better captioning. So that was our problem. But since in academics we have limited resources, we can only train up a limited amount of model. But the moment the bigger companies started training bigger models with billions of parameters, they were able to learn more and more, which the academicians cannot do. Okay, so in a transformer, what happened is that if we consider it q and k transport, if you consider it as a linear transformation, and we have a nonlinear transformation through a softmax, and then again we have a linear transformation of this softmax and v. We have multiple things, like we have a combination of linear and nonlinear transformation. And now once we have this thing, you can see that all these values are coming from the data. Q is coming from the data, k is coming from the data, v is coming from the data, right? So attention models are, so here you will find that there is no w here. So previously there was w, right? So now when you restrict this w, okay, you try to learn this w or u, it has some limitations. But the moment you will see here, there is no w, even q is coming from the data, the k is coming from the data, the v is coming from the data. So what happens is that the transformer or the self attention model can see multiple parts of the image, like even the tables are seen, the food is seen, the pupil sitting there seen, the clothes of the pupil are seen, the background are seen, the clock in the wall are seen, everything is seen. So these models are, they have the capability to see more in the images than what was being happened before. Okay, now the thing is that we had this, when you have multiple of these things, okay, it can create more number of information. I think I have a okay, so so these, most of these things are called heads. Heads means like if you go to this image, if you consider multiple transformers, right? If you have transformer 1, transformer 2, transformer 3, transformer 4, and transformer 5, and you show them the same image, they will be able to see things differently, right? And when you combine all of them together at a later stage, okay, they create a much better information. And that's where multiple head concept came in, where you are trying to see multiple things at the same time, and that is coming at the cost of some of these things. Okay, uh, so if you can consider so before I go to details of what actually happening, let's understand visualization and what is feature engineering and all those things. So imagine you have some images, okay, and you are trying to some extract some information out of these images. So this is where the images are. You are putting all those images into the system, and you're getting this layer 3 information, which are very approximation of the image of the faces you put in. Okay, so what is that mean? That means that the moment you put one image, it will try to approximate in such a way that the visual representation of the images can actually be differentiated from one another. So here, even after approximate each of the face of this pupil, you can still differentiate that, okay, this is one person, this is one lady, and there is another lady, and this is another person. Just a minute. Okay, so this kind of approximation, this example was taken from CNN. But if you consider large language models, it is also doing the same thing, but at a larger scale. If you see this image, you will not be able to understand whether this is the lady or this is the gent. But if you have a bigger model which can create representation for all of them, it becomes a larger model. Okay, so that's what these LLMs are doing. We are creating more number of parameters just to capture each and every information in any of the features. Okay, so let's talk about representation. I just want to give some brief introduction. So previously, feature engineering was about just create a information out of some vectors. Like if I have a I and it is represented by 1 0 0 0 0 0 and 8 by 1 0 1 0 0 0. In this way, if you have a representation which is being initialized by human beings, if you want to create a representation of this whole sentence, we will have something like 1 1 1 1 1. Right, this is one hot vector. The moment you shift from one to some kind of a distribution, you will have something like this. If you add all of them, it will create a chain of mountains like the Himalayas, right? And since one is very discrete and sparsity is a problem, we always need some kind of a distribution for each of the word. Okay, and that actually helps in better learning. So that was the key thing which previously, like 15 years back, people used to do to represent each of their data. But excuse me, but the moment word to vec came, what happened is that instead of initializing, so in this one I am choosing the distribution what it should be, but I'm not sure how the distribution, we are just making sure each word have a different representation. That is only thing we have. In word to vec, what we are doing, we are using a constraint equation, okay, to create this hidden layer. So we have a couple of sentences, we are trying to generate the next word or one word out of x previous context and post context, and we are trying to estimate this hidden layer. Okay, and once we have estimated the hidden layer, we have some evaluation criteria where we are trying to estimate whether we have learned some of the things or not. Okay, so once we have automated the whole thing, what we are doing, we are imposing some new metrics as some constraints just to make this problem a little bit harder. The moment it becomes a little bit harder, right, the amount of information the computer learns increases. That's what we have seen in our previous models. The more number of parameters we have, the more number of data we have, more information is being learned. Okay, so instead of keep making things simpler, we are making things complex. Now the amount of data we can put inside is limited. Now to make it more fun for the computer to learn more and more things, we are imposing more constraints instead of feeding more data, because there is some limitation in the amount of data we have. Okay, so So what to fake was, I think it is a pioneer of representation learning from a third party. Previously all the representations were learned from the same, like if a academician is trying to solve their problem or a company is trying to solve their problem, all the information or representation they get are from their own organization. But this was the problem where one problem was solved, like what to fake was solved by Google, and Stanford Globe was also there. So all this information can be used by other companies and other academicians as well. So this work actually revolutionized that we can generate, like we can have a synergy situation where I am developing one thing and you can use it, you develop another thing, I can use it, and all these things happens just by introducing some more constraints. And this was the basis of large language models. Okay, so large language models are similar things where you can easily work with a model which is trained by Google or OpenAI or other Hugging Face and all those things. They develop the model, they create a prototype, and you can fine tune it and use it for your own. Okay, so the amount, so now the onus is, the more difficult problem you have, it is not the data will which will dictate, it will be the constraint on which your problem should be defined. The better constraint or better evaluation criteria you have, you will be able to select that optimized point where you will be able to, unravel the full potential of your model. That's the key thing which need to be solved. Okay, so we have lot of this applications for natural language processing, like translation, email filtering, smart assistants, and all these things, automated summarization, social media monitoring, chatbots, and all those things are there. And each of these problems have, means the difference of all this problem is not the language, it is by how these things are evaluated. Like language translation evaluation, model evaluation is very different from document analysis. So the more number of like more, not more number, the diverse number of evaluation criteria or constant you put into your system, it will result in a different kind of a product or different kind of application. So like the initial standardization, so I talked about model representation, now I will be talking about language representation. So in language representation, what we are mostly concentrated is how to, represent not only the words but also the sentences. Okay, so that, because most of the natural language, and I work on a natural language, so I will always draw this examples from this domain. So most of these problems, if you see, these are mostly concentrated on understanding some language, and it is in the form of a sentences. And unless you understand the sentence, you will not be able to interact with the user. Like chatbots, here you have to understand what the person is seeing. If you have some online search engine, then that search engine should be able to understand what the person is actually searching. So all these things, actually you should be able to create a model where each of the sentence have different representations. Okay, so now the moment this kind of representation comes, you have to understand one thing, that the moment, say Mary was, if you create a representation out of, so Mary already have a representation, Mary and was actually combines into a uh, new representation. This representation, gradually you will learn more and more. Mary was hungry, then full stop, she didn't find any food. So the last representation, okay, it has been seen that the amount of Mary was hungry was this information will gradually decrease, just because you are creating so many approximation, which I already told you, it is a linear and non-linear approximation. This, and that's why it is called LSTM is called long short-term memory, because the amount of she didn't find any food in this part is more than Mary was hungry. So that's why this is said. So this creates a lot of problem that the information which is at the beginning of the sentence gradually fades away, and that is a serious problem, especially for NLP tasks. So that's why they are trying to create a sentence level embedding which can be much more influential, and it has a better representation. Okay, better representation in the sense that even Mary was hungry information should remain in this representation. Okay. Similarly, there are a couple of other tasks are also there. So like you have to understand the emotion. So if you here Mary was hungry, that creates the emotion. She didn't buy on food, that is another emotion. But this Mary was hungry should also be part of it, right? So unless you have a representation which have weightage for each of the words which are part of it, you will not be able to create a robust data language model. So that's why the amount of uh, like uh, like like large language model was more successful because they solved this problem where they created multi-level representation, and each of those representations are considering pre-context and post-context. And when you have that kind of scenario, at each segment you are trying to estimate the word which is present there, that will learn much more information than what we had before. This is more like a sequence to sequence model which are generated by LSTMs, right? So the amount of information or the amount of emotion the language have, if you cannot capture, then it is very difficult to create a big model. Okay. So similarly, I have already given you this example. Okay, so when you have a natural language generation task, if you have a CNN and you are putting into an LSTM, it is the onus of the CNN to capture all the information. Like there are giraffes and there are grass and there is rocks, but there are limitation on the amount of information it can capture, right? And that's why previous generation like image captioning models can only point out a very small amount of things, like there are a couple of giraffes standing there. Okay, but large language models, when they have multiple heads which are actually capturing multiple things in the image, it will have the capability to also understand that okay, the giraffes are actually running, and there are four giraffes, there are a couple of rocks in the side, and there is maybe a baby giraffe which is standing there. All these things can be captured when you have a bigger model, when you have multiple heads, when you have the capability to capture multiple things and combine them together. Previous generation language models didn't have that capability. Okay, so that's some of the things which, so what I am trying to point out is that large language models is nothing but what we had been doing for a long period of time, right? So if you are using some large language model in Hugging Face, these are pre-trained models, right? These things were already there from the time when word to vec was introduced. So it is nothing new which actually came. It is just that the like the awareness of people increased, which I was pointing out that we Indians don't know what our ancestors have done. The moment we will understand what our ancestors have done, then we will acknowledge those things and we will feel proud. Similarly, large language models, like we had been using word to vec and all those big models which are trained on billions of tokens, right? Those things were already there. No one was excited about it. Suddenly chat GPT came. It created a huge societal impact, and people actually realize the capability of the models, which previously, like we as researchers, we feel proud, but it is only the commercial people or the business people who can actually solve the problem for the society. And the moment they do that, that is when people start acknowledging, and the more number of people in the society start acknowledging it, that is when your product or your model will more become more successful. unless that societal impact becomes impacts reverberate to each and every person in the society, that will never be a successful. Like I gave you the example of microwave. Just because microwave is in everyone's house in any part of the world, that's where the impact is. But if there had been no uh, micro, like if had been limited to defense use only, people would have not realized the impact. Similarly, wireless communication, right? Jagadish Chandra Bose, when he created this this prototype of how wireless can be transmitted, and people actually can trigger something through remotely, people didn't understand the impact. It is only after mobile networks the impact was reverberated. Okay, and for people who don't know, Marconi operator never like never invented wireless capability. It was Jagadish Chandra Bose. Okay, so let's talk about another problem. So another problem was this question answering, visual question answering system. So unless the model have the capability to understand each and every part of the image, it will be very difficult for a AI system to answer any question. Which is like, what is the mustache made of? It is bananas, right? Unless the model have the capability to see each and every part of the image, it is of no use. Okay, so let's talk about large language models and the impact they have. So the thing is that we have huge amount of data. We means the big organization, world wide web. We have lot of data, but at one point of time, it is very difficult to share that data, right? Because Google, Microsoft will never share the data. If they share the data, other companies will become as rich as Google and Microsoft. So what they are doing, they are actually creating an approximation of the data in the form of a model, and then putting it in the society, right? Like if you see OpenAI models, those are built on top of what Microsoft opposes. So they approximate that data, they create some data on their they create these models, they create limited capability, and put it in the web as open source, and people can play with it or develop their own models. Okay, so in this way, I talked about initially when I started the talk, I talked about how US companies I can give you one example, like uh, Microsoft, even if they find Google as their competitors because they are competing, they know that a large number of Google employees will be buying more operating system and computers and all those things, right? So even at one point of time, even Google shuts down, right? There will be 2 lakhs employees, or not 2 lakhs, there will be 1 lakh employee who will stop buying Microsoft products. Similarly, there are other examples as well. Okay, so it is very important to engage not only your competitors but also your society, and that's where the bigger success is. Okay, so here if you find this there are a number of texts, there are a number of images, huge number of speech structured data. If you can train up some model, okay, even if it's not that much large, even if it is small model which is being trained on a large amount of data, and if you can solve any of the problem which you have, it is a large language model, because it is not the language model which is large, it is the amount of data which is large. Okay, and you have approximated too many things, and not only approximated too many things, you have developed a capable network model network which can focus or capture multiple things in a image. Or uh, if you are an NLP guy, if you have a document, right, if you can understand or capture multiple information from that document and create some inference out of it. So that is the, like if you have a one page document and if you throw it into a LSTM, it will learn very vague things which are mostly at the end of the document. But large language model can create much better things because it has been given the capability. So that's why, and the impact it has created. So lot of people struggles with writing skills, right? Especially like not even in India, even Western country people who do menial jobs like working in a Walmart or other things, they find it very difficult writing things. They do not have good writing skills, and even the amount of information content and all those things which we know as researchers or as good academicians we do it very easily. It is very difficult for an average person to do it. And this large language models which came in the form of chat gpt, that actually empowered them, that helped them solving a problem with which they were struggling for such a long time, right? So that's what the impact, that's where, so even if this kind of pre-training meta task and all those things which were already doing so many uh, you know uh, and like adapting the models which were trained by other researchers, we were doing it for such a long time. But large language model became crazy when it got the society actually accepted it. Okay, so another very important and impactful thing is that like when you search something in Google, right? It is what it is doing. It is giving you the service of searching for free, right? And the amount of revenue they are generating or the is very large, and it is done through advertisement. Okay, now you have to understand, the moment you search something, it is not only being able to understand your statement, but it is also being able to understand what are the things which are associated in with a statement. Like, if like I have shown you a very simple example of a laptop, but if you are doing something like searching something like what should be some question answering thing, like what should be the who should be the or like uh, what is the alma mater of say, Donald Trump, or you are searching, right? Then it will automatically show all, not only like the alma mater information of Trump, but also those advertisement of those universities who are actually trying to get some information or get some new students. Like maybe University of Michigan MBA program will give you an ad that join our MBA program, maybe some of this kind, right? So it is always trying to understand what you are trying to look at. Maybe you are only trying to write some document where you are focusing on Donald Trump, but that is not the point. What I'm trying to point, you are trying to search for universities or academic places which are of great importance, and that's where it is trying to understand your thing. So the amount of data or information you have to put into a system like Google or search engines like Microsoft Bing, it is very large, and it is very difficult unless you like cater so many diverse people, unless you have a very big model. What I'm trying to point out, that before ChatGPT came in, this kind of capability was already there. These were like if you have heard of ImageNet dataset, which have 1,000 classes, right? But these big companies like Google and Microsoft, they have ImageNet dataset which have 30,000 classes. So they were already there in the large language models kind of era. It was just that they were kept as a company secret. Only couple of people who were working in that domain, they only knew about those things. But it was only after OpenAI, who created this chat GPT, people started acknowledging the capability of these things, and then Hugging Face and all those people came in and created their own transformers which can be pre-trained and reused, and all those things actually came. So these things were already there. So it is not only 2 years, or maybe OpenAI is 6 years old. Okay, and the transformer paper came in 2018-19, so it is like 4-5 years. But the chat gpt, I think it's 2 years, right? So 2 years, last 2 years we had been acknowledging, but it was already there. It was only when it came into the public domain and created the impact that is when it becomes so important. Okay, so another thing I just want to point out, so why ChatGPT is so important, or why people are so crazy? What is the so another thing I just want to point out is it took OpenAI 6 years to develop a product like this. So you have to understand that it is not only the modeling which is important, it is also the engineering, the amount of testing and make it in a viable product. You have to put so many of effort, not only monetary effort but also human effort that need to be put in to create a model like this. So it is not a overnight dream which actually happened. So people who want to do work in this domain or create some product in this domain, be prepared to invest some longer time to developing and create a foolproof thing which can be accepted by the society. Why I put this chat gpt thing? So most of the models we are dealing with are mostly the like we are dealing with a model which is trained on a large amount of data, right? And the model has learned so many things that it can throw, the moment you throw one prompt, it will give you one answer or one generated text, whatever it is. But ChatGPT doesn't work in that way. What it does, it has the back of Google Bing data, right? So Google Bing already has this mapping of multiple queries which the people do search in their search engines, right? If you call it a prompt, if you call it a queries, whatever you can call it. So prompt is just a terminology which came last year when ChatGPT and this prompt engineering came. But before that, those were mostly queries for database people, right? So all those queries and their corresponding web pages, this mapping is already there because they are in the search engine business much before Google came in, right? So Bing was there, but they couldn't capitulate the market. So what they are doing, instead of learning all the answers by itself, they have created multiple models which can extract information from these web pages. So the moment you search for laptop, right, it will find the top 20 laptop like uh, web page, extract the data and give you some form of, and that's why the moment you regenerate the data, like for normal models, if you tell it to regenerate the data, it will not be able to create a diverse answer. It will give you the same answer for the same set, same prompt or same query. But since you chat gpt is actually deriving this information, some kind of a like passive summarization or a summarization task, right? You're given a document and it will give you a summary of the whole content. Similar thing happens here. So it is not always that it is learning the whole thing. It has developed this capability that the moment you ask a question, it will gather the top 20 pages, take a subset of those pages, generate an answer. So when you give it like regenerate the or paraphrase the answer, it will then do the same thing but with a different subset of the top 20 pages and give you another answer. So when you do that I'm just saying 20 maybe 100 pages, right? So the more number of diverse pages you have, the more number of different answer you can generate. And that's why every time since it is random, every time it will generate a different text for you, and you will never understand that how is this happening, that when I am training up a large language model, it is always giving you the same answers all the time, but chat gpt or openai is giving you the different answers. So it is a tremendous engineering problem you have to focus on, and you have to experiment a lot of things, what actually working and what actually not working, because there is no straightforward rule for any of them. Okay, so that is the beauty of engineering. We as engineers, we should acknowledge. And another example is Amazon. So Amazon is also doing similar kind of thing, but the seriousness of Amazon is very, very high. The stakes are very high because Google can earn from their revenue, and the revenue from their ads, and the ad revenue is very high. Whereas for Amazon, it is not only, they get ads but very less. The amount of uh, like money they have to generate is only through selling their product and their e-commerce capability, e-commerce, not logistic capability. Okay, so they have to make sure that whatever product they are putting up before you, it should be the best one which you are looking for, and at the price point which you are willing to pay. If they make it very high price point, you will never buy it, you go to a competitor and buy it. So this is also very critical. So when you are developing this kind of problem, you always need some model which can, handle large amount of data, and at the same time it is also, optimizing on multiple fronts. It is not only optimizing on the relevance of your search, but also understanding what price point you will take, what review quality you are looking for. Okay, all these things, all these multiple parameters you need, you have to make a model which is very robust, something like the large language models. So since people are only understand language, and that is the difficult part for many of them, for normal people, that's why we call it language model, but it is more than that. For it is like, for it is a recommendation, large recommendation model, large vision model, whatever you can call it. Similarly, there is user graphs, right? So if you consider some problem like Pinterest or what, those TikTok, those kind of things, they are always trying to, understand your level of interest, what kind of images or what kind of videos you have already seen, and what are the new things you are trying to see. And that's where they give you recommendation of the newer videos that can engage you. All this information, when you churn into a model which can, like, I may be interested in astronomy and computers, you may be interested in finance and cars. So all these things must be so different that you get very precise recommendation, and not something which will make you stop the app and get back to work. So when you have to have this kind of capability, you need more number of parameters, a transformer model which can, multiple heads can capture multiple information of your interest, just by understanding what exactly you got excited, what kind of videos you have watched, right? Unless you have a bigger model, you will never be able to do that. Last thing which I want to point out is that factor matrix factorization. Many people who have worked on image, not a recommendation system, already knows this. That, like, when you factorize a matrix, you get two matrix, and these two matrix, one denotes the user level embedding, and uh, another is the vector level for the, or maybe these are the items. Here I'm just considering some homes and some buyers. Okay, some people want to buy home, and there are a couple of houses which are available in the market. So when you factorize the whole thing, you will get some information about these buyers, and also some information about these homes, right? But this is like, if you use a very simple model uh, uh, like uh, like SVD. If you are using factoring through SVD, it is not very uh, like accurate. There will be lot of information, or lot of factors which will agree with the data, and there will be lot of embeddings which will not agree with the data, right? There are a couple of researchers who have done this kind of, factor matrix factorization through some other heuristics way. And what they have done, they have mostly worked on the constraints they have. So every time you break up this matrix into two things. They try to optimize one function, or they want to impose some rules with which you can do the thing. So this problem was happening, like this kind of problem was being solved quite a lot. So it is quite common for statisticians to solve this kind of problem. So there can be multiple solutions for the same problem, but the moment you impose some constraint or some equations, then that actually gives you a concrete ones, which is much more, from the parametric estimation point of view, it is estimate, like you can estimate the whole thing. Otherwise it becomes so large that you will not be able to estimate. Okay, so here the crux of the story is that by changing the goalpost or the changing the constant, right, you will be able to involve multiple solutions which are more useful, but at the same time it is very easily derivable. Like if you have multiple like thousands of solutions, it will be very difficult to choose all of one, the best one, right? But if you already have a constraint, then instead of 100 solution, you may only get 2 and or 5, and choosing from the 5 solution, it will be very easier for you. Similarly, like in cricket, the number of the rules were different 20 years back, right? But as players became comfortable in those kind of rules, the ICC changed their rules something else which make their life difficult, right? Similar things happens in large language models, is that the moment you have a problem to solve, instead of collecting more data, annotating more data, what you are doing, you are changing the goalpost, the rules, the constraints, the matrix, and the evaluation criteria. So that's why when you are dealing with large language models, you will be mostly dealing with data which are mostly like task data, NLP task data, like question answering and all those things. And most of the time those question answering data set are just to evaluate the how the data how the model is performing on that data set and on that task. So what I'm trying to point out is that it is not always that you have to collect huge amount of data to solve a problem. If you just change the goalpost and find out the best way to create a game which is exciting, that will create more number of engagement. Similarly, in neural recommendation system, so previously metric factorization was there, later on neural recommendation system came in, and this is mostly used in the industry. So what they do, they are creating the same kind of vector, but here instead of learning it by matrix factorization, which is very costly, you are learning it as a deep learning network, and here you have lot of this training and target sets where you are evaluating every time to see how it has learned. Okay, so I always talk about the role of mathematics, because in the future works of large language models, when you have a problem, it will be how you formulate the matrix or the evaluation criteria or the constraints you are imposing on them will decide how better you have solved the problem. Okay, so those days are gone when you have to depend on large amount of data is always required, but you can still do less, like create, like collect less amount of data and still create a better models, because the onus of training these large language models is now on the open source community, because they think that if only Microsoft and Google who develop this product, they will have the leverage to dominate the market. Now it is also empowering the society and also the other smaller mid or medium scale industry that need to be empowered to give them the capability to solve the problem for the society and create revenue for them. So from the mathematical prospect, it is only what you have to predict for your data set and create a mathematical model, the constraints which will give you the opportunity to make the next breakthrough. So with this, I stop my presentation. If there is any question, I'll happy to take it.
Yes, thank you so much, sir, for such an in-depth talk and covering so many diverse topics. We do actually have a lot of questions on YouTube, but I think actually due to time crunch, maybe I'll be able to take just one or two questions. So I'm just asking them in the order in which they have been posted in the chat. So
Sure.
the first question, sir, is that are astrology datasets documented anywhere or with any organization? Like, how can India acquire back its ancient advantage in data science?
So, like every year, people actually release a new Panjika, right? So, some people actually have to take this responsibility to whatever they have in their mind, or the way they are creating this astrology information, right? Some of these things are already there in form of astrology, but if you consider Panjika and how these calculations are made and all those things, these are all already there. It is just that they are not properly documented for data scientists. If someone takes up the problem and solve this problem for, or create a data set maybe from the government, by synergy between a small startup and the government, if that create that data set, that can be helpful, because a lot of astrologer uses this online, not online, these softwares to generate the kundli and all those things, and all these things are previously it was done by some pandit or some people who have the knowledge of it, right? Now those are digitalized, but there can be lot of other information which can be automated. These things are there, but these are very, distributed among different people. If someone can, come and accumulate all of them in the form of a knowledge, and also as training sessions for newer generation, that can be helpful. I am not talking about using it for pujas and all those things. I talked about corporates are very interested to know what kind of, advantage or disadvantage their employees have, what kind of, energy, less energy, dedication, all those things they want to predict. You understand the capability it has. It has huge amount of potential as a product. Okay. So even while recruiting, they want to understand, like there are some psychological or leadership principles kind of a interview which happens, right? They only wants to understand what is your risk factor, what is your dedication, how you are tackling. Some people, speaks out their mind, and the person who is sitting like in front of you, they understand your mentality, and that is where they makes the decision. So this kind of product can be very influential in not only for the society but also for product. So that's what I am trying to point out. Some people who are interested in this kind of work can chip in. It has great opportunity. And since the whole world is, acknowledging the capability of ancient Indian scriptures and things, they may be interested. Like all the sunshine and moonshines, all these things are coming from Indian text, right? So they are well structured. It is just that we haven't digitalized and kept it open for the public.
Right, got it, sir. Thank you. And yeah, one last question, sir. It's how to fine tune LLMs for low resource languages, uh, data presentation strategies, how to get or develop instruction set. I think mostly, so the question is around like how to fine tune LLM for low resource languages.
Okay, so large language models, it depends on what kind of capability you are talking of. So large language models means you will be able to learn lot of different distribution at the same time, right? So large language models can be implemented on a phone, on an embedded system, on a computer, on a cloud. So large is very relative. Something can be large for a mobile, something can be large for a computer, right? So it all depends on what kind of capability you are working on. But most of the time, people are trying to, like deploy their large language models on some mobile phones. So for the development or the training purposes, you have to use some kind of a GPU infrastructure or other like the cloud infrastructure like Google Colab and all those things to develop your model. But you have to keep your model in such a form, or the number of parameters should be in such a way that you can run it on your smaller devices. It may be an embedded system like a wireless sensor network, or maybe on a mobile phone which can absorb less amount of 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 resources like power and all those things. So you have to test what is actually working for you. If you have a high end mobile phone, you can have a better model, a big model. But if you have a low power device, you have to get things very smaller. So now as a researcher, it is the onus on you to experiment with a model and a data and the front. Okay, so what exactly you are trying to solve, it depends on you, but you have to train it on a bigger infrastructure to make things faster. Okay, and once you have trained up, you can implement deploy it any device you want. But again, it is very relative how much resource constraint you have and how much you want to do. Okay? So there is no limitation, like even if you have a very tiny model, a tiny LLM kind of, you can train it on a big data set on a big computer. It will get trained up very fast, and after that you have to test it properly. So I talked about the goalpost changing. So it is now the onus on you that you decide what are the things it will solve and in what capacity, and you decide those constraints and see whether those things are checked or not, means whether those things are agreeing or not, whether the model has got that capability. Once you have those things got those capability is built into the system, you can deploy it in any system. So you cannot train it on a smaller infrastructure. You have to train it on a proper infrastructure and deploy it on a smaller infrastructure. That's what I'm trying to point out.
Got it, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I think with that, we can wrap up today's session, which was, very, very like extensive, and I think I'm very sure people got a lot of idea and they
Sure.
can carry it further. And sir, if anyone watching on YouTube wants to reach out to you, is it fine if they can
Yeah, sure,
contact you over?
absolutely. No problem. I can.
Okay, sir.
Mhm.
So probably we'll post the details in the YouTube description, and
Sure,
people can look it up, and you can reach out to sir if you have any further questions. Okay.
sure.
So with that, I think yes, sir. Thank you so much, Chiranjib Sur, sir, and all of the people who have been watching this on Google Meet and on YouTube. Thanks everyone, and we hope to see you in the next session on ATLS. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chiranjib.
Okay. Mhm. Bye.